Hello everyone, this is Toby from Toby's Urban Sketch, and here is another really quick sketching video. This is another photo I've taken in the lovely summer in St Neots. I really enjoyed these shadows coming across. Of course we're going to do this as a little timed test because doesn't stress make everything more fun? Not really, because just it pushes you to try new things. It's different, it's fun, it's an interesting way of working. Apologies if you can hear the neighbours mowing the lawn in the background. It is definitely far too hot for me to close the window today. Without further ado though, let's get started. So I'm just going to use, at least to start with, my 0.3mm uni pen and my normal set of watercolours. I'm going to approach this, as I said, a 10-minute challenge. Let's see what we can do in 10 minutes. I'm going to go and start in the middle, which is what I often like doing, and I'm going to do this with sort of elements of continuous line drawing, but I'm not going to slavishly work to those rules today, although sometimes it's nice to put those limitations on. I'm just going to do a really loose, hopefully quite light sketch that you always sort of have your own preconceived ideas about what you'll do, and sometimes your pen, hand, whatever it is, brain takes you in some other direction you weren't necessarily planning on going, but that's fine. So let's bring this across. You see we're just building up these big shapes. There's a nice bit of perspective going on here, and I'm just going to try and leave myself a nice space here for the car and bring down these vertical lines at the same time as getting in this idea of the perspective. We've also got some challenging features like steps. Now steps I find easiest, most effective if you start by just suggesting them. So I think already these sort of sets of horizontal lines, perpendicular lines, sorry, look like they're steps. And if we try too hard to finish them off, often we just get it a bit wrong, and it's obvious it's wrong. Whereas if we leave them as these suggestions, the eye just decides, it fills in the gaps themselves. So don't judge your own work harder than you would judge someone else's. I think that's the rules here. If someone else had done this, I'm sure I would say, yeah, oh look, that's a really clever way of doing steps. Anyway, now I'm going to work on some of the interesting details. We've got this light framework in of our buildings, and we need to get, I think for me at least, a little more idea of the perspective, the size of what's going on here. Always aware, of course, of the limited time, so the need to either simplify or very much pick and choose what details we're working on. There are some lovely features on there. There's this arch of a door, so whenever I walk into town this is the way I go, because these buildings are just fascinating. Love to know A, how much they cost, and B, who lives in them. And there we go, just building up some of these features. I'm less interested in these windows and doors going back, so we'll leave them. And what I love about this is the black and white sort of shapes going on, and perhaps that's best done with the pen. So why don't I just start getting those shapes in, and I'm going to cut that door off like it is with a firm black line here, because this house is slightly behind this one. I also love this little sign, so what I might do is just make it a bigger sign so that I can really capture it, and we're allowed to do that. Be quite hard to capture it the right size, so let's just make it bigger so that we can really get this feature that we like in this painting or this sketch. And then just get these little windows suggested as well, and we're going to have to start just rationing our details a little bit as we get out this way. So I'm trying to stick with the correct perspective as well, so things are getting bigger and bigger, both getting wider as they get closer but also getting taller. And then there's this sort of line which runs through the middle of the house. And perhaps we can just really quickly nab some bricks, and I've got these ideas of greenery in here. Let's get those here as well. And then there's this really big pavement which again just heads off towards this car. So let's tackle the car. I've got a video coming up on really simple ways to capture cars, and essentially, like everything else, it's all about shapes. So just capture those shapes and don't worry, like this is definitely not going to be a perfect car portrait, but if you're urban sketching, you're not really worried about drawing a car portrait. You're trying to get the concept of a car in this space, and for me there is now a concept of a car in this space, and it's approximately the right size. It's possibly a little bit small, but it's approximately the right size, and it tells the story that I want it to tell, and that's all you need to achieve. And to do that you only need some basic shapes to capture your car. Have a little play about with cars and just maybe set aside a piece of paper and just see what you enjoy most about capturing them, what they add to your scenes. Now this lamppost here I'm going to make big so that it can come above my houses, and bring it back down so it's got a bit of 3D shape. Definitely made it sort of more of a feature. And how are we doing for time? Ooh, 5 minutes gone already, but luckily for us, much of the rest of the scene is sort of this greenery which is just framing things. So we'll just get loose pen work, then we can bring in our pavement and our wall, trying to get the idea of, again, perspective, so it's a thing growing towards us. And then let's just get like a couple of road features, because a road is really quite a large thing within this sketch. And I'm going to cheat. I know that there's some little sort of metal work going on behind there, and I'm just going to suggest that, even though it's very difficult to see in the reference photo. Have another lamppost. This lamppost has to be a bit taller to make sense. And there we go. That is our sketch done. So let's move on quickly to our colours. So we've got a few minutes. I'm going to start with this greenery because it's big and a bit empty at the moment. Going to mix just the yellow and blue, so that's cobalt yellow and Hansa yellow and cobalt blue. And let's just do a sort of more of a watercolour technique for these trees. So just some random flecks almost, trying to get these tree-like shapes using very vibrant colours here. And then deepen it with a little bit of brown. In this case I'm using quinacridone sienna, and that can start to get just the idea of multiple tones in our bit of greenery. And we can use this same tone just in the back here, perhaps a little more yellow, and that can sort of sneak under. You can also come in here to these bits of greenery. Now, a nice thing to do might be just to add a little bit more texture into here. We can do that just by dropping in tones and even dropping in some blues, just to, you know, this is a fun urban sketch. It's not got to be totally accurate, so let's just let those blues work a bit of magic. Going to use the same blue, this cobalt blue again, to impart some kind of sky. This is where dropping blue in actually makes sense, because now you can see the sky coming through all the greenery. And let's just make a little bit of effort to join things up now. So these have had a chance to dry, which means if we go in with a soft, clean brush, we can start creating textures, and we're not going to just blend everything together. So can you see how it's leaving little lines and creating interesting effects? If we'd gone in earlier, we'd have just blended all this colour. And I'm quite enjoying this green and blue look, so what I might do is just use these blues in these windows. And as we get towards the green, the windows can become green because they'll be reflecting those greens, and then as we get back here we'll go back to a bit more blue. Maybe we'll just be a bit neat around the houses, and the houses are becoming sort of negative space. We can then combine our blue and brown to try and get a sort of neutral colour, and that can be this lovely shadow, and it can come up into some of these other places as well, just to create that shadow from the arch, the shadow in the doorway. Remember our steps, we can just bring a little bit of shadow across them, and suddenly it's another effective way of getting the idea of shape, of suggestion of what's going on. And I think we need a little bit of something going on in the road as well, so let's just almost dry brush, just a bit of texture. And we could do a little bit of the same in some of these houses, and oh, I wonder if I've gone over there. I'm a terrible cheat. I am a terrible cheat. Well, there you go. There is my 10-minute sketch done anyway. So it did end up being lots of greens and blues. Got some nice shapes going with the pen, and we used the pen to create some contrast. And a little think about how we do cars as well. I'm going to let this dry naturally, and then we'll have a look at what it looks like. So this is the sketch. It's basically dry, not completely, but pretty much gone. Gone from very wet to dry. A couple of little damp patches. I really like it, and I don't think I need to add anything to it. However, what I would like to do is just show you the sort of power of a bold line, and that the reason this is a really good opportunity to do that is because we've left all this negative space. So I'm going to use a medium nibbed Lamy Safari with some black ink in it, and let's just go for it and see what happens. You'll see how much these houses just lift from the page when they get a sort of dark graphic line. And it is more, becomes very, I guess, illustrative is the word. Bold, illustrative kind of style that you get. And I'm just going to start by doing the big outlines, and I'm going to incorporate the doors in because they kind of have this step at the outside as well. And we can get some of these door details in as well. But I'm going to go over this greenery. Let's just see what happens when we lift some of these step details as well. And they're still, despite making them bold, you see how they're still convincing, at least to me, and feel free of course to disagree, at least to me they're still convincing steps. And there we go. And then we'll go through the top. And this is already bold, but we can still make it bolder. And then this as well. The advantage of this, also cleans up some of those edges. You get this really crisp outline against the blue because you can fill in the white, cover up blue where it's overlapped. And let's just, now that we've done that, we can separate out our houses as well. And it has this lovely effect of making these other details sort of ghost behind. I'm going to also incorporate that, and let's just, since we're here, I said I loved this sign and I didn't really make the most of it, so let's just give it a lovely little mural and also make it nice and bold, and we can give it some fancy ironwork as well. I have a low threshold for what fancy is, if you can't tell. We'll just get some of this bold to disappear off and reintroduce it on this side as well, and this kind of separates the man-made from the, well, natural. The cars will just do this little touches, and there we go. So that is now my finished image. And can you see how much more graphic it is, how much more punchy this negative space becomes just by applying a firm outline? Let me know in the comments which you prefer, the before or the after, or even the blank page. You're allowed to hate the whole thing. And if you do enjoy, please do like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.